Well, hello, everybody. Excited to be here. We are joined by Joe Martin, VP Marketing and Strategy over at CloudApp. Thanks for being with us, Joe.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped to chat with you. Before the show, I was trying to get to go a little deep already with Joe, so already had some amazing conversations. So excited to share with you all. Now, Joe, one of the things I'm curious about before we even dive into marketing in general is what was it like going from Adobe to CloudApp? And was that a cultural shock at all? Like, what was that kind of change like? Going from that, yeah.
I still have some PTSD for it for sure. The funny thing is too, is I opened a Utah office and I could see the Adobe office from my office in the new office. So I had like a constant reminder of what I left. Yeah. Adobe was really great, and I really love it, and I'm such a huge fan of working there and the brand. But it was a good opportunity, and I guess the best example I have that I always go to with people is day one. I was talking with the CEO at CloudApp.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I don't really like our headline on the website. I think it could be a little bit better. It's a little too broad. And he's like, okay, what do you think? And I said, oh, maybe we could test these 3 headlines and kind of see how it goes. He's like, okay, done. And I was like, whoa, this is like, first of all, Adobe, like, stay in your lane, bro. You're not even on the website team. And even if I was, it would take 6 months to convince the CMO and brand teams and 10 other directors that we should change the headline. So that was kind of a pretty cool explosion.
I love that. No, I love that because I'm doing like the same thing. My marketing Slack is only like approved, and like it's so funny that in this world like that isn't normal. You know what I mean? Like at other stages.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to take some time today to talk about data and content marketing. You notice that Adobe probably they did the Visible acquisition, things like that. I've explored a lot of tools. Are you already popping sour candy?
Oh yeah, man.
You're insane. All right, let me get into this. So I love it. You're the first person who just proactively did it. So how do you think about, like, I just also started getting into programmatic for the first time ever because I found a software that lets me do true incrementality. And I had this belief that certain investments like content that I believe are brand centric or top of funnel advertising brand centric need to be measured not in this last click or first click world that we're obsessed with, but in something that's multi-touch. So for everyone listening and tuning in today, how do you think about understanding and measuring the value of content so you can push quarterly budgets, so you can keep growing investment there when we all end up losing dollars, I feel like, to SDRs or advertising? So how are you getting more dollars for content using data?
Yeah, so we aren't sophisticated as a multi-touch attribution at the moment with CloudApp. We go off of last touch, and then we do also have like anonymous tracking, so we can get first touch attribution as well to kind of see if social had a hand in that. And eventually, when I have some more analyst power, I would build a multi-touch attribution model. A lot of it is in the initial phases. We just had so much kind of work to do initially that it was, let's just get moving. And I doubled down initially on these SEO pages that were converting very well. Yep. And so I wanted to get more of those out that were similar and just different keywords that were focused on, knowing that it takes some seasoning. And then the blog has been great for like raising domain authority. We have great content on the blog, and so a lot of people will republish that on their sites, and we get those link backs to ours. And then as far as like analyzing how valuable that is, we look at conversion rates. So I'm looking at how many signups come from certain channels. Okay. And then also what of those signups lead to paid users. So we kind of know which ones are actually leading to loyal long-term customer versus ones that are just leading to someone who downloads the app but doesn't actually end up using it.
No, I love that, Joe. And now one of the things I have this kind of belief of like meeting people where they're at, right? And one of the obvious issues of last click attribution, if you're using the measuring stick as product signups or demos, is that oftentimes the where they're at in the journey versus what you're offering don't match in a last click model. Do you have something that you're like a gateway conversion? Like for us, we have a Slack group that's actually really active with like demand gen marketers that we kind of treat as that like something to meet them there. Are you using gated assets? Are you gotten away from gated assets? Are you trying to use community? Are you pushing straight to product? Like because if you use last click and it's all like purchase intent, like timing, obviously it's tough to then say, hey, board or CFO, I want to go from having 3 writers. I want 10 writers. This is the future. Like, how are you finding that like that connection between like the value of it now versus what you know it really means to the business?
Well, I think kind of being in the growth phase, we're very focused and we'll be in the growth phase for a very long time, but we're very focused on that top of funnel sign up. And I was actually talking with someone the other day who's, an executive at a unicorn company. And he said, he's 10 years into this and he's like, that top of funnel sign up number still keeps me up at night. Like it never dies. You always need to focus on, in a freemium business, you always have to have healthy top of funnel signups, and optimizing those so that they have higher activation rates, good onboarding, they get to the value quicker.
Yep.
And then secondarily, since I have a very small team and can't diversify too much, we have this bottom of funnel demand gen, just various forms on the site. So we have a demo path. There's a enterprise get a quote path. We have various solution pages where you can fill out a form and talk with someone. There's click to call options, if people want to just click and use their computer to call and talk to someone. And then we've lightly used Drift as well to kind of engage people. But that's kind of just something to keep the pipe healthy and keep engaged with the sales team. And will be much more of a focus in the future. And then actually something we recently did is I kind of came in and one of the first things I did was I wrote a whole bunch of ebooks. Because that's traditional B2B, right? You gate ebooks and people download it and you have a lead. And I recently ungated all of the chapters of the ebooks. So we get the SEO value of the content versus it being a PDF. But then people can download it all together and with the graphics and make it look pretty.
Have you seen Clearbit do that on their sales book?
CloudApp's actually chapter 1 of data-driven marketing. Clearbit's ebook.
That same. I love that layout. I use it all the time as an example. So you said small team. So I want to dive into that. Can we define small? So how many people do you have kind of on this content side?
So I have 2 direct people on my team, some contractors, and then some copywriters, and then a few interns.
Totally. No, so it's totally small team. Everybody has different definitions. So within that like kind of 2-person team, I have something similar. I have 1 person, but what I've struggled with is I know I got to do this transactional content. I think a lot of people tuning in are going to have the same thing, right? I know I need to do this blog content that is engaging, ongoing, and kind of can start to hopefully build some type of community and consistency, right? So I have this side there. And then I also have these like core pieces, like these quarterly data reports, this really in-depth stuff I want to do that I could even turn into print, mail to CMOs, get really like strategic with, and maybe a little more direct response and more brand driven. Then I also then have the SEO side of it, like ranking my service pages, or in your case, your solution feature or product pages. When you have all those resources, or the lack thereof, and frankly, you could have 100 people on each, it feels like these days, to like how like competitive and difficult it is. How do you prioritize? How do you decide? Like, what's that framework of decision making you're using as the VP to say, this is what we're not going to do, even though it's a good idea and we know we should, but we're not going to do it. And here's what we are going to do. Like, how do you decide that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I think we've done a lot of things. And for the first probably 90 days, it was me figuring that out, because there are 10 million directions we could go. And it's easy when you're seed funded to run out of money quickly if you're not smart with acquisition spend and other things. And so I just kept going back to what seemed to be working and what I knew would get us, like, I call them foundational pillars in our board meetings. So it's these SEO, these backlinks. I do guest posting a lot just from the network I've created for lots of different, Fortune 500 companies, and that links back to CloudApp. And what is the most efficient use of my time? And we were talking earlier about how this is probably one of the most efficient things you can do as a company, is this 20-30 minute live stream turns into a 30-minute podcast episode, which turns into a blog post. And then after, you've got 10 episodes now. So now you can do an ebook with the 10 episodes, and it says 10 SaaS leaders talk about marketing tips or whatever. And that becomes a demand gen piece. So it's finding these efficient uses of time along the way of having these, Black Friday campaigns and, we've done like skip a meeting today and send a CloudApp video instead campaigns, and all these just random things where we engage our community because we have a fairly large email base. Over 4 million users have kind of tried out CloudApp. Wow. So we're able to engage with them and do various things with content.
Yeah. What I love, Joe, and this is going to be interesting because I don't have this size of scale, but at smaller sides, because I have this more high average order value, white glove type business. And within that, though, what I found is when I do my LTV CAC modeling, because I love finance and I love modeling, and we do this with our clients as well, the most leverage is in the activation stage, not the acquisition, which I found so interesting as like an SEO and PPC guy myself, is that like you have so much more control at this activation level. Like I can't decrease CPCs in Google. I can't change the CPL conversation ads on LinkedIn. Like and I can't get past X conversion rate. Like there's just like some real finite things that really limit your customer acquisition cost. And then organic is this thing where you still got to get into like the top 5 or top 3 to get that real marginal return. And so what I'm curious about for you is, with your demos, with your signups and everything else you're doing from your content, what are you finding is the best way to get someone from that moment of sign up to an SDR or to an AE, or however you guys' flow works? Like, what are you guys doing to activate? Because I think one of the biggest problems with people is they have this content. It could do well for them. They add an inline CTA, they add a pop-up, but it doesn't change their pipeline because there's no purchase intent oftentimes, right? They're still in this like problem exposure solution identification stage, not like purchase intent. So how are you activating people so you can keep spending more to grow the top? How are you making sure you're activating them still at the same time?
I think that's, sits a lot with our product and growth team, which do a great job of analyzing those moments where we know if someone completes this event, then they're 50, 100% time, 100% higher, more likely to use the product more, become a weekly active user, that type of thing. And so that team is always running growth campaigns, doing a lot of testing within product. There's a time for imitation and there's a time for innovation. So we're also there's a lot of companies we admire that we're always kind of seeing what their path is and talking with people and seeing if that path would work for us, and throwing that into a test. And that's the one thing too with imitation, is you could be like, oh, this company does this coolest thing ever, and you have no insight into if it actually works for them. So you gotta be you gotta know, like, hey, you know, X company does really well and has a great brand. Well, maybe this path isn't great. Like, we have no idea. So you got to test it and see how it works for your audience, and, you know, make that improvement. We going for number 2 here?
Oh yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
You like the sour candy. I love it. Like I'm normally like forcing this on people. You're like, hey, bro, it's supposed to be a sour set. Like, candy. Oh,
I'm gonna tear my tongue up. I'm not gonna be able to taste anything.
I put it in the side of my mouth. It recovers like tomorrow at like 8 a.m. You'll be all right. I become obsessed on accident with this thing I found on Workable. And I want to get your take on it. So
Okay.
I was doing a SaaS marketing makeover. It's on a live show. We like spin a wheel. I genuinely don't know who is on the freaking wheel. They put the production team puts it up. They spin it. Lands on Workable. First, there's like no resources in the menu. So the OG like SEO in me is like, how the hell are you not going to link from your menu? This must not rank. By the way, Grammarly and all these other companies, people are not linking content in the menus anymore. And it's not affecting their organic. Side note in my mind, because that was never like best practices. But Workable took this idea I had and made it 10 times better. So I believe in glossaries and like a really isolated thing, because for scale, like when we've done this with large accounts and even small accounts, anybody, myself included, you can create massive amounts of scale without diluting quality because there's no opinion. It's all research. You're literally defining what this is. Now, they did that with HR terms, but they also took the moment of problem and value and mapped them to content and to product in an insane way. So they built this thing called HR Toolkit, right? Their ideal customer, 0 to 200 employee HR manager.
Yep.
And they built all these templates for job descriptions. So the moment HR manager gets from the director of SEO, they need a new AS, an account strategist. They have an account strategist, like they have every type of job description, like hundreds, and so repeatable, right? So they have this thematic thing they're capturing with organic. Then they have interview questions. So they're taking every piece of this and putting in an HR toolkit at massive scale, all internally linked, all with right beautiful breadcrumbs, permanently structured, subfolders. And then once you finally get to the job description, they have a one-click post where you could post it to Workable, like product signups, content, moment of intent. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm curious about is like for CloudApp and other people, how are you trying to take this idea of like transactional, usable, like, how do I explain this? Like we all in the SEO community in this content world went down this path where it was like 17 reasons why you need to do videos instead of meetings. 9 reasons. You know what I'm talking about? Like that. And then here's why the MQL is dead. But that's not really like, that's what I do, right? It's still not as good as this. Like this is brilliant because someone has a use case, the problem they're trying to solve, they need a job description to do their job.
Yep.
And their job happens to be empowered by Workable's ATS software. So in your mind, like how can CloudApp, how can other people move away from thought leadership and like 9 reasons why and listicles to this like functional content where it like solves the problem your product solves and matches? Like how can we do that better?
So I think there's a couple of things that we consider. First of all, CloudApp, you know, every time you create a screenshot, GIF, or video, you get a share link, which if you're on a free account, it links back to our site. So, you know, we have that kind of ability to just grow links very aggressively. There's kind of a split. Like if you look at kind of the drop boxes, the boxes, us, you know, some of our competitors, there's a split between if they do this or not. Prezi does it. Prezi has the ability to have actual rich content.
PowerPoint template.
Their presentations. Yeah. So CloudApp is mostly just like an image with no copies. So it's not a super valuable link. But a site like Prezi, where there's presentations and content and other things, can get that value and just grow really rapidly. So I think there's a combination of, do you have a publicly available link like Prezi or Pinterest does this as well, or Dropbox, or us? Or are you more the workable route where you build a tool, and that tool is your SEO? And
Yep.
it could be like what you said, like an HR toolkit, or there's like, I don't know, like a mortgage calculator, or whatever people are searching for a lot. Like us, we could probably create like a GIF compressor or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely a growing piece of the SEO toolkit.
Yeah.
Where it's like creating an actual valuable product versus necessarily the thought leadership that has banners and pop-ups and internal linking and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
As far as if it replaces or if it just becomes a new supplement, I'm not sure, but
they're almost separate ideas, right? Like you have this side of your strategy and then this side. I just started getting obsessed with this because a couple of reasons. There's one, because I think I looked at it. I mean, I did the audit. I was blown away at how well it does organically and then how repeatable it is. Because there's no, like, you can outsource this to anyone without diluting quality, which is the hardest part of scaling content, is like the diminishing marginal return of quality as you do more. So it's like, yeah, we're ranking, but then we're not scaling conversions because people aren't more likely to hire us after they read it than before. Right. But it goes to something else. And I want to hear your take on this. Is like, you guys have this product, to me, that's like a perfect fit for a Google Chrome extension, where net new users, a different channel than organic, is built in. Have you started thinking about like extensions instead of ebooks, making an Amazon book? This is what Dave Gerhardt and like other guys are loving to do, is they're baking in their content strategy to create net new acquisition channels. Like, how do you use Amazon search, one of the largest search engines in the world, to drive B2B SaaS, right? How do you use YouTube to drive B2B SaaS if you're not a visually, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, are you thinking about like intrinsic, like, distribution discovery channels that are a part of content?
Yeah. So after those 90 days that I mentioned, I decided I was going to go hard after YouTube and Google. The two, I mean, people call YouTube a search engine, debatable, right? But it is a largely searchable platform. And it's visual, so it fits in with our brand. So for the most part, all of our blog posts have what I call a 60-second vlog about the blog.
I love that.
It's where we use CloudApp to record someone on my team with one take, because I'm also trying to eliminate the stigma of video.
Okay.
Lots of ums and ahs.
I can't let that go. What's the stigma of video in your mind? I'm actually
well, I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily use CloudApp or a competing product to record themselves talking to a presentation or a contract or whatever it might be, because they're afraid of ums and ahs and needing to do 10 takes before they send the link to an executive or whatever it might be. So my team has lots of ums and ahs, lots of like random people walking behind them, just one take.
So you're essentially, I love that. I want to stop here because that's brilliant. Because what you're saying is I use the word psychological friction. Yep. I think it's the same thing you're saying, stigma. There's a psychological, like, I love video. Like, this is me and my natural, like, this is what I love to do. So I don't have that. But I realize also nobody on my team, I have a whole company of like 50 people. They don't want to do this, right? Like, So there's a psychological friction with seeing yourself on camera and talking. And you're saying one of the reasons why CloudApp isn't bigger than it is has nothing to do with CloudApp, but instead how people want to accomplish what CloudApp does and if they feel comfortable using it. And so you're taking your team and making them normal people who are not professional video guys or gals.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're showing them like, no, dude or dudette, like, this is dope. Like, this is a better way of explaining value. That's so cool. I love that idea.
Yeah, and we use it in all of our product releases and everything like that. So it brings up lots of. This was not a video that took a month to create, and we didn't use an agency, and it didn't cost us $20,000. It was something that we created a week before and made sure it was okay, and maybe did one retake if it was a professional video or more distribution. But all the blog and other stuff, it's all very authentic and tries to just display the value without, you don't need a perfect video.
I love that. Wistia has done a great job of that as well in their content. I was always really impressed with how they went about that. Now, I'm obviously like a SaaS marketing nerd. I like look at every brand I feel like in the world and like study it. So,
Yeah.
But one of my questions that for you is, you're obviously really, really sharp at communicating your brand's value in your content strategy. And you're measuring it all, and I can see that. Obviously, you don't have multi-touch, so there's still some gaps that you're developing to get to where you can fund it and I think push it more.
Yep.
But one of the current areas you do have access to, right, based on just, I'm guessing here, but is like Google Ads and Google Analytics. So what are you doing for like sequential retargeting and building audience pools off of this content strategy? Have you started to group URL groupings and things like that to start to empower paid social and these other channels? Or kind of what's your take on integrating paid media with content, whether it's syndication, programmatic, retargeting, list building? Kind of what's your take on that?
So yeah, I mean, we have a big opportunity there. We have not put a big focus on paid acquisition. We've mostly gone all in on organic. Okay. So you won't see a lot of Google ads about CloudApp. We've certainly tested some things with some retargeting and some basic paid search, but for the most part, we've grown organically, probably like 95% organic.
Oh, wow.
So we're still digging into that well. There's still a lot that we can accomplish from that. And it, extends our runway and gives us the ability to spend more on engineers or product people or, things that can make the product better and hopefully create, a loyal customer that stays with us and wants to refer, 10 people.
You just got my brain so excited too, because your blended CAC would be so good on the paid side. You could run paid ads right now and they wouldn't even have to be financially efficient and you would still be able to cover them because you're organic.
And there is a big opportunity there. Like I understand that, if we did raise money again sometime, then paid would be a big focus of that because I think we can scale quicker. SEO takes a little bit more time, but yeah, I think let's hypothetically say we were doing paid. A lot of it is the retargeting. We do a lot of blog posts that are very focused around the themes that we win in, whether it's persona based or like high level remote work or, customer experience or productivity.
Yeah.
So those content pieces, people may not engage with us when they come in for the blog, but we could create, lookalike campaigns and make sure that they're retargeted with a Google banner, and then maybe on LinkedIn or Facebook, they'd be retargeted with a webinar or an ebook, basically kind of bringing people down a journey. First retargeted ad is just a banner. Second one is an ebook. Third one is a webinar. Kind of various targeting options.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, one of the things too, I love you talking about this is like, I started getting really obsessive around this idea that for a SaaS account, right? So I've run like growth, I guess, at Directive. And so I have like a director of sales development. She's amazing. We have all of these teams are doing all these things. But so when I'm learning that, and I love to learn more about sales systems and processes. And so I was reading this book called Winning by Design. And what's interesting about SaaS is in the sales model, it's about landing with as little amount of friction as possible, then have pricing economics that allow for expansion to create gross margin, additional capital, and cash flow. And what I thought was so ironic is in the demand gen space, we don't ever talk about how we can use digital and content to expand accounts versus acquire them. So what's your take on this idea that I have of like taking a mixed panel, heap, Pendo, things like that, product analytics, creating a bidirectional sync with like a segment, going to a data warehouse, and then driving ads based on app engagement, right? So you know how you have app engagement that's triggering like your CS team to reach out, but it's not triggering an ad. So we talk about all this ABM, but nobody's using ABM post-sale they're using it in the funnels. Like advanced people are using it like from disco to demo to SOW to negotiation, but they're stopped there. What's your take on using advertising like in a model like yours, right? Where you've been organically grown. You must have a lower CAC. You guys don't want to overspend there. You're focusing on engineering product-led growth, which is great. What's your take on like my concept? Would it fit for someone like you of trying to build a data warehouse that could run ads to people to get them to expand with CloudApp?
I think it could. And that I could see that being a really valuable like programmatic way. Yeah, which can certainly scale. And I think for us in the stage that we're in right now, it's a PQL focus, so product qualified lead that we've started building out. So people that have a certain title, work at a certain size company, have engaged with certain events, they get flagged and approached by our sales team, or in using enriched data to understand who someone is that signed up and funneling up people that are at the adobe.com. They're going to get the email from our sales team versus someone who maybe is at gmail.com. A big piece of that is just understanding who converts with us, what personas and what people we should engage with. And I think the other piece too that is valuable at our size is not programmatic, but relationship based. So one of the first things I did with us was expanding our guest posting profile and spidered into our largest customers and said, hey, I know you're using us for customer support. I'd love to talk to your CMO about doing a content collaboration. And now, after everybody needs content, right? We're all in the same game here. So when they see, that we want to exchange a really valuable guest post with them and they can post on our site, we can post on theirs. Now I have their CMO or head of content or whatever as this ally. And I love that. I can go into that quarterly, and it helps everybody. And we've spidered into this organization. So it's not just customer support team or sales team of 50 is using CloudApp. It's sales team of 50 is using CloudApp, and we're engaging with their marketing team. And I'm hosting their chief experience officer on the podcast, and lots of different spiders into various organizations that has provided a lot of value.
I love that, Joe. So you're saying like if you were a performance marketing shop who worked with SaaS companies and you could get the VP of like CloudApp or something like that on your show, that might be a good strategy.
Yeah, I think, and podcasts too, like it's obviously kind of still peaking. But people are if you find the right person, they're very willing to not only be a guest or find you someone who will be a guest, but it's a compliment, right? So like you're reaching out to someone probably cold or through somebody else. And everybody I shouldn't say everybody, but especially in marketing, maybe want to do this type of thing or willing to be in front of media or in a forward-facing role. So they're flattered that you would invite them to be on your podcast, even if your podcast is new and doesn't have a ton of viewership. It's the
I know about
that. And so that I think that provides a real value that basically every guest I've had on the podcast was either already a customer or someone in their company was a customer and they didn't know who we were and was like, hey, this is really cool, we should use this. Or it gave us just that direct exposure of like, hey, you guys are doing some cool stuff and not right now, but let's talk in the future type thing.
I love that, Joe. That's such a cool way to expand. Well, thank you for being on the show. This has been amazing. I had so much fun. I could literally do this all day. But I want to be respectful of our 30-minute show. So with that in mind, Joe, how can people get a hold of you? How can people get in contact with you if they want to maybe join your team, use your product? etc.
Here, I'm gonna pop this toxic waste one first.
You're crazy.
Here we go.
You just want to eat the sour candy. I'm realizing now.
I tricked my son, my 8-year-old son, into having one yesterday. I was like, "Hey, buddy, try this candy." And he's like, "What did you just give to me? This is poison." I was like, "You got to fight through it. It's about to be so good."
I remember, like in Little League, you go to like the snack station, they have all the sour candy, or like the ice cream truck goes by with the fart bombs and everything. I mean, I don't see it anymore like that. But that was so much fun back then.
Totally. Connect me on Twitter at Jody Marty,
Cool.
LinkedIn for sure, and CloudApp is free to start. Pretty aggressive free offering. So go to getcloudup.com and download it for free and give it a try.
I love it. Well, hey, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. You are the Sour King. So thank you so much for joining me, and talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye,